So as you know, Cisco is the principal sponsor for the WBA Wi-Fi Global Congress coming up this November. And that's very important to Cisco on a couple of different levels. For one, we want to show that we are very much in support of what WBA is trying to accomplish by making Wi-Fi an easier technology to use for operators and a better experience for the user. And I think it's very important that both the vendors and the operators work together in order to come to a better implementation that provides really accelerated industry growth. So this is a very important activity for Cisco, and I think that you'll see a great deal of participation, not just from Cisco, but from many of the other players as well. So I think there's a couple of developments that I think are happening now in the industry that will really drive the adoption of Wi-Fi, and the WBA has really been at the center of that. One is Next Generation Hotspot. So what is Next Generation Hotspot, and what does it really mean? Well, one, it is industry broad. We see that the GSMA is involved through the liaison agreement with the WBA. We see that the WFA is involved in certification of devices that are actually capable of doing Next Generation Hotspot. So we see that there's a lot of excitement around this. But at the end of the day is, why is there all this excitement around what we're doing with Next Generation Hotspot? Well, it really comes down to two key areas. How do we make the user experience easier and better? And how do we integrate Wi-Fi into existing access technologies like 3G, 4G, LTE type implementations? And the WBA is very much focused on those two key areas. I think a third area is roaming. How do we authenticate into the network? So if I come back and I talk a little bit about Next Generation Hotspot, the first thing that it does for you as a user is it automatically finds the network, and then based on the network that it's attached to and the roaming agreements that you have, now it can automatically authenticate into the network. I'd like to give an example that happened to me personally when I had a phone call from my wife. She was in the airport. She was trying to connect to the Wi-Fi. She called me. I was actually traveling in London at the time. She goes, "Matt, how do I attach to the Wi-Fi network? I need to get our son's soccer registration in, and I'm getting on a plane. It's due." And I said, "Well, first, go and pick your SSID." And she goes, "Pick an SSID? What's an SSID?" And I said, "Well, you have to pick the name of the network." So I told her how to get into the configuration, And she goes, "Well, there's all these different SSIDs." And I said, "Well, don't pick any of the ones with locks." And I said, "Well," she goes, "why can't you pick one with a lock on it? Just don't pick one with a lock on it." Right? And then she goes, "Well, here's one, free public Wi-Fi." No, don't pick that one. That doesn't actually go anywhere. And so at the end of the day, I just told her, I said, "Look, turn Wi-Fi off and you'll connect to the 3G network." Well, that's not what we want to have, is it? We want to make sure that Wi-Fi is easy to use. So what should her experience had been? She should have gone into the airport. Her device should have automatically discovered the network. The device should have automatically connected securely to the network, and she should have got right to her business of registering that soccer application. Right? So that's what this technology is all about. That's why we're excited about it. I think it's going to make a big impact on the industry. The perception of Wi-Fi has really improved over the last couple of years from an operator perspective. Initially, there was a little bit of a question on where does Wi-Fi come into play? Is Wi-Fi a competitive technology, or is it a complementary technology? But I think that question has really gone away over the last couple of years as they've realized that, hey, the more RF you have available, the more services you can offer, the more applications you can run, and the more users you can have on the network. There's also this concept of points of presence. You want to make sure that you can offer service no matter where that user is, inside a mall, whether they're at home, whether they're at work, whether they're in a hospital, or whether they're in a retail outlet. We want to make sure that we're offering an access technology that's available to the user, that's available for work, that's available for their home type use, wherever they are. And I think that's something that all the operators have realized that they want to leverage as they offer their services moving forward. So it really is a complementary technology, and it really is an extension of their existing service network. And I think that's why we're seeing this growth in the WBA as an organization. We're seeing this participation from so many operators coming in and doing this trial activity for technologies like Next Generation Hotspot that makes that user experience easier, more secure, and more available. And so I think in those ways, everybody has reached consensus. This is a better service for having more RF, for having more access. So I think this is going to continue to grow, and we're going to see more and more traction between those two access technologies as we move forward. So I believe that Wi-Fi will continue to grow in the industry over the next couple of years, especially when we look at the track record from the last couple of years. So we'll see this access as a technology become leveraged more and more as we move forward. The number of devices that are going on the network are growing exponentially. The types of devices that actually leverage the network, you know, it's not just that smartphone anymore. It's the tablet with just the Wi-Fi interface. It's the game console that the kids are using. Every 10-year-old wants to be connected to the Wi-Fi network today. I think the other advantage that Wi-Fi provides is the points of presence. You know, if you own licensed radio, what you own is the license, so you offer a service within that license. If you own, you can't own Wi-Fi. It's a unlicensed technology. So what happens is that the venue then becomes very important. It's the venue, it's the real estate that actually drives the RF implementation. And so what we're seeing is that Wi-Fi is being deployed in more and more venues, whether it be that airport, whether it be the train station, whether it be the public library, whether it be at work, whether it be at home. Wi-Fi will always be there as an access technology. So I think it's in the best interest of the operators and vendors to make sure that we can find ways to integrate these technologies in a very effective and simple way where the user experience is transparent. At the end of the day, they don't care if it's unlicensed or licensed access, they just care that they have access. And so it's, as we move forward and the WBA continues to drive this combining of the two technologies as an access, and as they continue to do trials that prove that we can authenticate between, that we can securely connect in between these access technologies, what we'll see is that the user experience will get better. And with that better experience, we'll continue to drive data bandwidth rates, and with the additional bandwidth rates, we'll see the continued deployment and adoption of Wi-Fi as an access technology.